Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with The Little Princess. Chapter 15, The Future Looks Bright. Where is Sara? Jessie cried, anxious to know all about the details about the sudden disappearance. Next door, said Ermengarde, with the man we always called the Indian gentleman, only his real name is Mr. Carrisford. He's actually an English gentleman who lived in India. He was her father's friend and business partner. Now he's going to be her guardian. Does Miss Minchin know? Was that what the fight was all about? Why did Sara write? Tell us, the girls babbled in all confusion that followed. There were diamond mines, Ermengarde explained firmly. There were. They were real, but there was a lot of problems about them. Something happened at one point, and Mr. Carrisford thought they were ruined. He thought all their money was lost. What about Sara's father? Shouted Lavinia. Captain Crew thought they were ruined. He was so upset that he got sick and died. Ermengarde continued. And Mr. Carrisford got brain fever and ran away, and he almost died too. And he didn't know where Sara was. It turned out there were millions and millions of diamonds in the mine, and half of them belonged to Sara, Ermengarde told the astonished group of girls. And they even belonged to her when she was living in the attic with no one for a friend but Melchizedek, and the cook was ordering her around. Mr. Carrisford found her this afternoon, and his house will now be her home, and she will never be back. She will be more of a princess than ever, and I'm going to see her tomorrow afternoon, so there. Even Miss Minchin herself could scarcely have controlled the uproar after this. Though she heard noise, she did not try to stop it. She was in no mood to face anything while Miss Amelia lay weeping on the sofa. However, she knew the news had spread through the school and that every servant and student would go to bed talking about it. Why does she still have a job? So almost until midnight, the entire school crowded around Ermengarde and listened as she read and reread Sara's letter. It was a story which was just as fantastic as any Sara had ever made up. Only this time it had the added charm of being true. Becky, who had heard the wonderful news of the happy life that lay ahead for Sara, managed to creep upstairs earlier than usual. She wanted to get away from the others and look at the magic room once more. She did not know what would happen to the room. It would be unlikely that Miss Minchin would allow the lovely new furnishings to remain. Undoubtedly, everything would be removed and the attic would be bare and empty again. Glad as she was for Sara's sake, Becky went upstairs with a lump in her throat and tears blurring in her eyes. There would be no fire tonight, no bright light, no supper, and no princess sitting in the firelight reading or telling stories. No Princess Sara. That was what hurt Becky the most. Bravely, Becky choked back a sob. She pushed the attic door open. To her amazement, light was illuminating in the room. The fire was blazing, and a dinner was waiting. By the table stood Ramdas, smiling broadly. Your friend did not forget you, he told her. She told my master the whole story about your friendship. She wishes to know the good fortune that has befallen her. A letter for you is on the tray. She does not want you to go to bed unhappy. Mr. Carrisford desires you to come to his home tomorrow. You are to be the attendant of Miss Sara. Tonight I will take these things back over the roof. He made a little bow and slipped through the skylight, which showed Becky how easily he might have done so many times before. Like everything else, the Carmichael family was all fascinated by the touching saga of Sara Crewe and her reunion with her father's best friend. They talked about it endlessly. At his request, Sara now called her guardian Uncle Tom. There were no such friends as these two became. In a month's time, as Mr. Carmichael predicted, Tom Carrisford was a new man. He actually began to enjoy his wealth, which he had always considered to be a burden before. There was a little joke between them that he was a magician whose pleasure was to invent new ways to surprise her. She found beautiful fresh flowers arranged in vases in a room from time to time, whimsical gifts tucked under a pillow, and fascinating new books to read at her bedside table. One night, as they sat reading in the library, they heard a mysterious scratching outside. When Sara opened the door, there stood a large dog. It was a Russian wolfhound, mostly white with brown markings. Oh, he's beautiful, Sara cried. He has such a sweet face, but what's he doing here? He's your dog now, Sara. Mr. Carrisford said, smiling. I thought you might like him. Although he likes to run and hunt, he will be a gentle pet. Take a look at his collar. It's gold and silver, Sara said, inspecting it carefully, and it says, I am Boris, and I serve Princess Sara. Oh, thank you, Uncle Tom. I really do love animals. I really do. That afternoon, when the large family, Ermengarde and Lottie, gathered together with Sara and her Uncle Tom were delightful. There were but the times when Sara and her guardian sat alone to read or talk or play with Boris had a special charm of their own. One evening, Tom Carrisford looked up from his book and noticed that Sara had not moved for some time, but was gazing thoughtfully into the fire. What are you supposing? He asked. I remember a day when I was particularly hungry and I met a starving street urchin when I was out running errands. I've never forgotten her. And then she told him the story of the bake shop and the 4 pence she had picked up out of the mud, and the little girl who was even hungrier than Sara. As she spoke, she noticed how upset he seemed when she talked about her cold, hungry, difficult days. It was as if he blamed himself for them, which Sara never did. She was so happy now, thanks to dear Uncle Tom, that all she wanted to do was share the happiness with him and some others. I was proposing a kind of plan, Sara said. I was thinking I would like to do something special to help other needy children. You can do anything you like, Princess, Mr. Carrisford said. You know, you say I have so much money, Sara said, hesitating a bit. I was wondering if I could go see the woman at the baker's shop and tell her if other hungry girls and boys come and sit on her steps, she could invite them in, give them something to eat, and then send me the bill. Could I do that? You shall do it tomorrow morning, Mr. Carrisford told her. Oh, thank you, Sara said happily. You know, I know what it's like to be hungry. It's hard when you can't pretend it away. So it was decided, and all the plans were made. The next morning, Miss Minchin was more than a little irritated when she glanced out the window and saw Mr. Carrisford's carriage and tall, sleek horses draw up in front of his house. The front door opened, and he and Sara, dressed in soft sealskin coat and hat and carrying a delicate white fur muff, came down the stairs and climbing the carriage. Hurrying along them was Becky, so happy now to always be with Sara. Quickly, a defeated and very unhappy Miss Minchin turned and stormed out of their room. Shortly afterward, the carriage drew up in front of the bakery shop. Sara looked in. Once again, the baker's assistant was putting out a tray of piping hot buns in the window, just as she had been doing when Sara had been there that awful day. When Sara entered the shop, the woman turned and looked at her rather curiously. After she arranged all her pastries neatly, she took her place behind the counter. For a moment, she looked intently at Sara, then her face lit up. I'm sure I remember you, miss, she said, and yet, yes, Sara said, once you gave me 6 buns for 4 pence. And you gave 5 of them to that little beggar child, the woman interrupted. I've never forgotten that. Then she turned to Mr. Carrisford and said, My name's Mrs. Brown. I beg your pardon, sir, but I bet there's not many young people that notice a hungry face in that way, and I've thought many a time. Excuse me for saying so, miss, she said, turning back to Sara. Your cheeks are fuller, and your face has more color, and you look better than you did that day. I am better, thank you, said Sara. I am now living with Mr. Carrisford here, who is my guardian. I've come to ask you to do something for me. Me, miss? Exclaimed Mrs. Brown, smiling cheerfully. Why, bless you, miss. Yes, miss, what can I do? And then Sara made her proposal for the shopkeeper to give buns to hungry children in the neighborhood as an ongoing gift from her. Why, bless me, Mrs. Brown said, quite astonishing. It'll be a pleasure for me to do that. I'm a working woman myself and cannot afford to do much on my own account. But I have to say I've given away many a bun and muffin since that cold winter day, just thinking of you. I know how wet and cold you were and how hungry you looked, and yet you gave away your hot buns as if you were a princess. Tell me, do you know whatever happens to that starving girl who was here that day? Why, Aunt's working for me now. She started doing odd jobs and running errands here, and I got to like her. So I gave her a place in a home, Mrs. Brown said. What a good helper she turned out to be in the shop and in the kitchen. She's a decent, well-meaning girl, and as thankful as they come. Mrs. Brown stepped out the door of the little back parlor and called for a helper. The next minute, Anne came in and stood behind the counter. There was no little question that she was the little beggar girl, but clean, neatly dressed, and well-fed now. She was shy, but she had a lovely face, and the wild look she was gone from her eyes. Sara took her hand out of her muff and reached gently across the counter. Anne took it, and they looked straight into each other's eyes. It was a tearful moment for both girls. Brimming over with excitement, Sara told Anne about her plan to help needy children in the neighborhood. Perhaps Mrs. Brown will let you be the one to get out the buns because you know what it's like to be hungry, Sarah suggested. Yes, miss, said Anne shyly. I would be so happy to. Somehow Sarah knew that the sweet, dear girl understood her, even though she was young and could only stare at them, as Sarah and Mr. Carrisford walked out of the shop. Sarah turned and waved to Anne and Mrs. Brown one last time. Then she and Mr. Carrisford got in their carriage and drove away. And that is the end of A Little Princess. Thanks for listening. Have a nice night.